because a lot of African-American history was pretty much erased. So between Jim Crow and slavery and whatnot, a lot of this history was just pretty much buried. And so we just really started to think it. So there's so many jockeys out there. And I'll give you a nugget. I know we're jumping ahead, but coming up for Black History Month and or Women's History Month, we have the first female African-American jockeys in America that we're doing a special bottle for them. So our tagline is history, heritage, and homage. So we want to just respect to those who paved the way for us.
Welcome to Show Your Receipts, where we believe if you can see it, you can be it. Receipts are evidence or proof that something has occurred. Our guests are evidence that Black excellence is alive and well. They will be sharing their receipts on how they've been able to accomplish so much in their life. I'm your host, Tony Jackson. Let's get started. Welcome to Show Your Receipts, where we believe if you can see it, you can be it. Today's guest is phenomenal. A gentleman by the name of Emmanuel Waters. I'm going to read you a quick information on his bio. Emmanuel is an experienced contract consultant in Silicon Valley. He started his career working for the Department of Defense and has over 12 years of experience in both commercial and government contracts. Upon leaving federal service, he opened up his own LLC and currently serves as a contract subject matter expert for universities such as Stanford University, Berkeley, and several tech companies. One thing most do not know about Emmanuel is he is the son of a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel. Spent his high school years living in Japan and Germany. Emmanuel has visited 32 foreign countries and visits a new one every year. Emmanuel currently resides in San Jose, California, where he enjoys traveling the world with his daughters and his wife. And we are happy to have you. Emmanuel, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Man, thank you for having me. So excited to be here this morning. That is quite the bio, man. I didn't even know I did so much. So thank you guys.
Absolutely. Man, I was impressed reading it. Like, man, this is awesome. So let's jump right into it because, first of all, you're the first person I've ever known or met who owns a spirits company. And so tell me a little bit about this spirit company. I'm sure I'm going to be placing a order online here soon. I love a good old fashioned. So tell me a little about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, it's crazy. So during COVID, literally one day, it was obviously during George Floyd, and we were on lockdown here in California. I read an article, and this is how I know the company was ordained. I read an article that said Black wealth to diminish by like 2040 or 2045. I read that article. I said out loud, I said, man, I would love to do something to generate some type of generational wealth. I said that out loud in my office privately. The next day, my cousin Courtney, who I didn't even grow, we're all originally from North Carolina. He called me the next day, was just checking in, and he lives in LA. And he said, hey man, I'm starting a bourbon company with some of these other brothers, want to bring you on board. And I was like, this is a godsend. So I literally said that out loud. And the next weekend, I drove to LA, met up with my cousin Courtney, and we were on the call with my other co-founders, Courtney and Jesse. And that day we had literally formed the team, us four brothers, and we really hit the ground running. That was September of 2020. Fast forward, we've been in business 3 years now. We broke a record for the fastest selling bourbon in the state of North Carolina, where we're all originally from. So
Wow.
we sold 400 bottles in less than 45 minutes.
Wow.
In Kentucky. We're also in California. We hit the largest retailer with Bevmo, Total Wine. So we're just growing rapidly, all within 3 years' time. So it's been a crazy trajectory, man, to say the least. So we're continuing to grow and looking forward to what's next.
That is amazing. So first of all, if somebody's watching this, how do they find you? How do they purchase a bottle of you guys' product?
Yeah. Then outside of Kentucky, North Carolina, California, you can check our website, Old Hillside Bourbon Company.com. You can check our social media. Everything's there in terms of ordering bottles. We ship to all 50 states. So you can just check the website, show where we are. You'd be surprised. We always say that because people are everywhere, and they always know somebody that knows somebody that's got a friend or family that's in the states that we're in. So obviously check the website, Old Hillside Bourbon Company.com, or social media if you want to support it and get a bottle. So like I said, it's been a great trajectory. The whole concept behind our bourbon and why it's been going so well is we are telling the story of African-American jockeys who made the Kentucky Derby famous. That story have never been told, So coupled with that, with the fact that we're representing Black Wall Street in North Carolina, where we're from, it's just a force to be reckoned. So
Man,
that's
you
why.
are hitting on so many. Man, you get me excited, man. So let's rewind. Let's back up here a little bit. You just told me something I didn't know anything about. The whole idea, the history of black jockeys in the Kentucky Derby. Would you mind digging into that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny. My co-founder Jesse lived in Lexington for I think 15 plus years, and him and Brian were at the horse races one day, and they were out there, and they said, "Man, there's nobody that look like us out here. Like, what's going on? Everybody's dressed up, fancy things." And they started doing research and realized that blacks had dominated this sport for decades. And then when we got on the call and we talked about it, and I would today, when people are looking, go Google the name Isaac Murphy. He is literally the greatest African-American jockey of all time. But it'd be like literally like, be like somebody not knowing who Michael Jordan is. How do you not know who the GOAT is?
Wow.
But
Yeah.
because a lot of African-American history was pretty much erased. So between Jim Crow and slavery and whatnot, a lot of this history was just pretty much buried. And so we just really started to think it. So there's so many jockeys out there. And I'll give you a nugget. I know we're jumping ahead, but coming up for Black History Month and or Women's History Month, we have the first female African-American jockeys in America that we're doing a special bottle for them. So our tagline is history, heritage, and homage. So we want to just respect to those who paved the way for us. So there's so many jockeys. And again, most of the history there is because, again, most of them were slaves or born to enslaved people, and they took care of the stables and the horses. Thus, it was like a natural marriage per se, because they learned how to blacksmith, they did the horseshoes. And so a lot of them just became famous riders, in the late 1800s or early 1900s.
Wow. That is amazing. And so would you mind digging into a little bit more I know you talked about how you started the company, but I know you talked about why you started the company. Why do you personally think it's important for it's four of you guys total, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Why do you think it's important for the four of you to be working in this space and influencing the market with this incredible story that you guys have, as opposed to doing something else? Why bourbon, and why is it important to pay homage to that past, in your opinion?
Yes, that's a great question. So bourbon specifically, obviously Kentucky owns like 99% of the world's. But if you look at bourbon, whiskey category as a whole, I was so fascinated. Let me back up by saying I was never a whiskey or bourbon drinker ahead of time. I would even say I didn't even drink alcohol. My parents are Southern pastors. Alcohol was not a thing in our house. So let me just
Yeah.
disclaimer out there. But when I went to Kentucky and got with my guys and we were looking at a distillery, the maturation process of bourbon, of how it could sit on one barrel, could sit on one shelf, another sit on another, and totally two different flavors contingent on where they're sitting based on heat that's rising or the heat that's lowering.
Wow.
So it's just phenomenal. And even in Kentucky, where everything that we do is in Kentucky in terms of our bourbon, they get 4 distinct seasons. So, in the winter time, it gets cold, and even in the later in the spring, the limestone water comes through, which laces all of the calcium and iron out of the bourbon, which gives it that unique flavor. Right. So I'm just fascinated with what I see. I mean, I've seen tons of barrels before, but just the process in which it was aged. And so, believe it or not, a lot of Americans now don't even drink whiskey, don't drink bourbon. Right. We were probably,
Right.
Hennessy, all types of stuff. And so I always ask somebody, like, hey, what do you like about Hennessy? And nothing wrong with that. I don't drink it, but what flavor do you taste when you taste it? No one can ever give me this thing taste. Tastes good when we're drinking it, right? But if I tell you the taste of my bourbon, what do you taste on the nose? You can taste caramel, you can taste cinnamon, you can taste natural leaf, you can taste the fig. So it's just really, we became in love, and I became in love personally, just fell in love with the process. And then that's what really interested me. So naturally it was just, hey, let's bring you on board to really handle the business side of it and the contract side of it. And then as I got deep into it, I was like, man, this is just really phenomenal. So it's important. And I would say, to your second point, as far as African-American entrepreneurs, it's very interesting. Every facet of life, whether you're in tech, biotech, depending on different phases, you realize there's always not a lot of us in particular spaces, right? I'm in Silicon Valley. I'm always one of the only brothers at my job when it comes to the tech space, right? And the same thing goes for spirits. There's not, blacks are something close to 85 to 90% of the consumers with only less than 2% of ownership within the spirit space. Nobody really knows.
Wow. Wow.
So we can spend $1, but when it comes to making $1, we're not represented. So it was important for us to say, hey, we got together. We said, hey, we've all come from different facets of life. We've all made our companies plenty of money. It's important for us to now put that back into ourselves. And for me, as a young parent, I got a 3-year-old and a 10-year-old, I want to show my daughters that, if you choose not to go the corporate America route, you can create something for yourself that can be fruitful and then create it. So that's really what drives me, honestly.
Wow, those statistics definitely blew me away. 85% consuming, but only 1 or 2% ownership. I got 2 questions for you. The first question is, why do you think it's such a huge disparity in that area? And secondly, I know we were talking about the Black people more so consuming cognac and different things. Do you think that's a marketing thing? Because it's like it seems as though we've been heavily marketed to in the cognac space, not so much in other areas. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say, man, let me answer the second one first. So it comes to marketing. Cognac does a great job of marketing. See, they do. Anytime you got a company that's giving you guys Black History Month shout outs, that's how you know they're
right.
Consumer. So they
the rap lyrics.
The rap lyrics, the rappers, the NBA players, they're all drinking this stuff. But again, what's interesting is a lot of these people, celebrities, they don't own any of that stuff. They're just brand ambassadors. They're just getting whatever the check is. I don't know what they're making, but they're just getting a check for here's this check, and you're going to get this check and you're going to grow it. So a lot of them aren't even owning half of that stuff. So a lot of it's just massage, right? That's one. Two, I think when it comes to, I would say the bourbon as a whole, I'm not sure why we don't own most of it. I mean, most of it was just like so much other stuff in America. It just stems back to ownership, Blacks as a whole, which, our history in this trajectory in this country. But you could just take it from a perspective within the last 3 years, since we've been on this journey, it's very hard to get capital, right? Right. So a lot of times we'll hear the story of like, oh, Blacks, we sell out, we go get a check. But it's also like, we were not given, unless you were like an Elon Musk or a Bill Gates, we were not left with millions of dollars to start our own companies. So what then we do have to do? We have to go to a Chase, go to Wells Fargo, go get those crazy loans with crazy interest rates and get some capital to kind of get us to grow. So that's been, I think, one of the main reasons why we haven't been able to own stuff, particularly in the spirit space, right? I think it's very hard. And not many of us would even know we want to start a company tomorrow, what that would take, right? So I think now the tide has turned. I know, particularly in 2020 with everything that happened with George Floyd and COVID, I think that kind of really turned the tide. You now see a lot of companies that just, hey, we're DEI, but a lot are talking the talk, very few are walking the walk. But those that are walking the walk, we have been able to capitalize on that. And I would say even for us, it's very tough to start a business. I can tell you some of these big banks, they say they want to talk, they really don't. They said they want to help us, they really don't. So those that are thinking about starting, I would encourage you, it doesn't hurt to invest now. You don't know what you need, but it can't hurt to put something to the side, because I can tell you, you're going to get a lot of no's before you get yes. We had one bank that was just like, we're just looking for a small line of credit. It was just, it was less than $50,000. And it was like, they wanted us to give our newborns, and we went through all this process, and they're like, well, we don't have any income to do that. I was like, that's why we're coming to you, because we need a line of credit to generate income, right? So,
yeah.
But we always say this is something ordained, and when it's bigger than you, things just line up,
That's right. That's right. So talk to me, Emmanuel. Talk to me about the mentality that it takes as you're getting the no's, as you're coming across the adversity and the roadblocks. What did you do? How did you and your team, how did you guys stay focused and continue to keep moving forward despite these obstacles being thrown at you?
Yeah, I would say number one is ask yourself, what are you in it for? What is your passion, right? If this is just a get rich quick scheme, whatever you're trying to build, not just in spirits in general, but if this is just get rich quick scheme, it's probably going to shut you off. But if you look at the long-term trajectory of what drives you, right? For us, we knew that these Black jockeys were important to us. And even bigger than that, we have a whole community behind us, right? If the name Hillside actually derives from the oldest and largest African-American state in the school of North Carolina, which is where the name came from. So our ancestors So
Wow.
everything was clearly meticulated. I mean, if you look at our bottle, look at our label, we have the Mutual Building, which is the oldest Black-owned bank in the city. Some of our ancestors worked there. So again,
Mm,
it's bigger than us. We have a
mm,
community. We have a state. We have a city. We have young people looking up behind it. So we couldn't
mm,
fail. So that's what really drove us, right? And then, yeah, it was a lot of no's. I can remember sitting around at 1 a.m. like, why are we even? I mean, when we got that no, particularly, just like it took the wind out of our sail.
mm.
For every no, there was also just a lot of breadcrumbs along the way so that we knew that we were heading in the right direction, right? For one thing, people don't know about spirit space. If you know anything about spirits, they're what they call control states. It's about 12 of them in America, which means it's not as hard, or excuse me, it's not easy to go buy spirits in that state. So North Carolina's one, Philadelphia is one. Meaning you can only buy that liquor in those particular stores, right? So when we started our business, we met with some people and they told us, why are you bothering North Carolina? It'll kill your business. Don't bother going to North. We were so deflated from the call. Don't go to North, your business. It's too hard to do it there. We knew what we had to do. You see what I'm saying? We were past. We was like, North Carolina is the home state. We know what we have to do, right?
Yeah.
We just happened. This is how I know. The day that we got on that call, we were deflated. The next day we get a call, and it just so happens that we knew somebody that could get us access to a broker that it just lined up that way. And it takes spirits company about 10 to 12 years to get into that state. We got in years.
Wow.
Yeah. Stuff like that happens to us all the time. And then the first year we got into the state, we break a record. It's the day that we opened up and we signed bottles. We're selling bottles at, was it 9 a.m. and it's November, it's cold North Carolina, and the line is wrapped around the building. We have to stop. Yeah, it was, I'd never seen nothing like. I got to the store, I was like, are we selling iPhones? What's going on?
Wow, that is, man.
Yeah. So again, little things like that would happen is like, we know that we're heading in the right direction. Things were just lined up. We just say this company is ordained and this is bigger than us. We're just playing our part. I mean, we come to California, the same thing. We're in the largest retailer in the state. We're up and down. We got 40 stores. We're in top shelves in those stores. That is nothing upon us. It happened to line up that way when the company that bought them knew that about us in Kentucky. Everything just lined up,
Wow.
And so it's not to say everybody's journey will be like that. Don't get me wrong. Things could line up. But in the parcel success, it was like, okay, a door would close, but then a window would open. And then we jump in that. We would go to that window as quick as we can and bring people with us. And I would say this also, while we're building and we're on our trajectory, we also make sure to look at those behind us that are starting up. So any African American, any minority that wants to have a brand, we opened up our black book for them. This is who you bottle. This is who you're label. And somebody did that for us. We had some people that were helpful. We had some people who were not helpful, right? So for us, we had to take a step back because if you know anything about bourbon, you know that it's not a lot of us out here. There's one major brand named Uncle Nearest, Fawn Weaver. She's a black female. She kicked the door all the way down, right? Door. But people always be like, oh, we compare you to Uncle Nearest. And we'll always say, we're not in competition with our sister.
Right.
Or any other spirits brand. This category is a $9 billion category. We're fighting for arms. So let's all pull our resources, come together, and take a bigger piece out of the pie. That's how our mentality is. Everybody doesn't have mentality, but that's how we are.
Absolutely. Let's dig into that, Emmanuel, because it often seems in the spaces that us as Black people operate that oftentimes if you do succeed or you're one of the best, then it's like they try to pitch you against whomever is the next Black person who is succeeding or one of the best. It has to be a you win or they win, like a zero-sum game. Talk to me about the mutual cooperation it seems like you had with this lady who owns the Uncle Nearest brand and how that was able to be beneficial and why that competitive spirit that's often the case, why that may not necessarily be the right path for us to go.
Right. And I was funny. I watched a commentator about this and he was like, Black people, they talk about the crabs in barrel mentality. And then he literally said, crabs were never meant to be in a barrel. So for us, in terms of like competition, I personally do not know Fama. I know that she talked with one of my co-founders and gave some advice when we first started. And if you look at what she's done, she's now turned Uncle Nearest into a $100 million brand, and then is now turning around a venture capitalist fund for other minority-owned spirits too, because she knows, and other brands know, that it's very hard to get capital, right? And so now you're seeing more and more of these programs for Black-owned spirits collectors, which we were part of. We got in the Pronghorn Initiative, which was a sister named Dia Sims created this, and she worked Diageo. She worked for Ciroc and Diddy program. She is just a beast in this industry. She created a separate company, and we got a part of that company. So the doors we're hoping is she knows that there's appetite for more Black-owned, minority-owned spirit brands, and it's just a matter of us, like you said, trying to pull together. But they do try to put us in competition. But again, we just took the mentality that we're not in competition with anybody. We have a lot of, there's I think 17 of us now in terms of the Black-owned spirit brands, and we're always like, how can we help? What do you need from us? Is there anything that we can do to help? And most of the time, it's the other brands we talk to, they're receptive. Some people would have shut the door in our face, and that's okay. It's all right. It's no harm, no foul. We have to keep on the journey that we're going on. And I think for a lot of, I say, new entrepreneurs, you have to know really where to spend your time and your resources. So if you've been kicking on a door, some doors, yeah, keep kicking. By all means, if you're supposed to get on a call with Diddy, keep knocking on the door, right? Sometimes if you've been calling somebody, you've been emailing somebody, and they're not responding, take your resources and go elsewhere. And if it's truly meant to be, eventually it'll come back around, right? So I think that's where you have to learn time management. I go back to college, right? And us, what is valuable with our time. I can't be at every single function, nor can I be with every single 501c3 that wants to do a nonprofit event, right, and get free bourbon. I cannot do that.
Right.
We cannot as a company, right? So you have to use the resources you have, and then you have to learn to say no. And sometimes you have to say no. And sometimes your old people will tell you that you're opening bourgeois because you have a company. That's okay. We get invited I can't tell you the amount of inquiries that we get. Hey, we want you to do a homecoming, and it's going to be 10,000 people, and it's a good way for you to get your brand out. Oh, great. Okay, so how many bottles do you want to purchase? Well, we were thinking it's like, would you go to Jack Daniels and ask them to donate 1,000 bottles? Why would you do it to us?
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So you have to kind of, I thread that line, right? Of say, hey, we're a growing company. We are in the community. We know where we come from. We'll never forget. We always say, how can you know where you come from unless you know where you're in? We're just country people from the Carolinas. But on the flip side, is also know that we're on a trajectory and we're trying to build a multi-million-dollar company. Well, giving away a bunch of capital or a bunch of inventory, probably not the best use of resources.
Right. And if people want to support, you support by buying the bottle, not by sampling it out at your event and telling everybody about it. Make a purchase. That was my plug for the Old Hillside Bourbon brand. Make a purchase. We don't need any sampling it out. You touched on the time management piece, Emmanuel, and I wanted to dig into that because I know you didn't start off as working in the spirits industry. You actually started off as a consultant. And so let's talk about how do you manage that, your consultant career with the bourbon company? How does one know when it's a good time to even go launch a company when they have a full-time career that obviously is a really great career that you have? So talk to me about that balance of being this businessman and entrepreneur, but also having a successful career.
Yeah, that's a great question. And there are many different ways. I can tell you I'm new to it, so I can tell you what I know in my limited time. Like you mentioned, I would say I've had a very successful in corporate America, right? Successful career, and was looking to continue to climb, right? I was a director at a very young age. And when I got the company, I just knew the time. So in corporate America, specifically like in Silicon Valley, right? When you start working with tech companies, they feel as though once they start paying you a certain type of money, they feel as though they own your time. And so for me personally, I got to a point where I was like, you're taking away time from what I'm passionate about. So I'm going to take a step back, if you will. I'm not going to be on every board and every, thing, but you have to find that balance because for me, I mean, I'm married. I got a wife with 2 kids, right? And I live in the most expensive zip code in America. So I'm just not going to up it. So we always say, do everything smart, do everything with wisdom, right? So initially there was no funds coming in terms of the bourbon. So there was no need for us to just let me jump off my job. Like, yeah, that's definitely not going to happen. Right. I would tell people that are trying this to really, if you can, there is a way to find a balance. So for me, I get up early because I got kids and they don't sleep. So I'm up early. At that point, prior to my 9 to 5, I am answering bourbon emails. Boom, 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 crank, crank. And boom, all right, kids got to stop. They get up. All right, let me handle my regular job. And that's how I do it. And I would schedule my day around that. And then once take mental break, I go to the gym, play a little basketball, take a break. And then as soon as the kids are done, I'm back on laptop late at night cranking out bourbon. So I did that round. I'm doing it for the past literally 2.5 years. So now it is, okay, now we're at a crossroads. We're like, okay, we finally are at a point where now we can take this company to the next level. It'll get to a point, if the company truly is growing where you need to be, it's like, okay, at this point, now you can officially exit safely. Now, I know people will have different opinions, say, just go on in. And we've had other entrepreneurs that tell us, no, you got to quit your daytime job and go full on board. But for us, just given the risk that we take, for me, it was all about exiting safely. So now I'm at a point now where probably next few months, I will transition out of corporate America, leave my consulting behind, and pursue the bourbon full time, because it is now at a point where, okay, now it's, I'm taking calls and it's taken away from what we could be doing. Right. But I would say the everyday 9 to 5, like, don't poo-poo on that. Like, that is how you pay bills. That is, and for me, it gave me a baseline. So it paid my bills, make sure we're comfortable. And then I use the creativity from that the lack of stress from having my bills paid was what I used to insert into the company, right? So again, I think what we're learning is everybody's entrepreneurial journey will be different. And I will look when I'm fully doing it full time in the next few months, and it will when I started 6-7 months ago. It kind of depends, but just time management is everything. And those if you got a kid, I would say this. If you're married, I get it. But it's when you get those children, that time really becomes a factor, right? Especially when you get multiples. Then it becomes really fun, right? So you have to I've had to learn, and I'm still learning, what is really important. Like, can this call wait? Can this text message wait? Initially, when it started, everything was, I need to get on this call, and this call, and this call. And it was fine. But now multiple kids. All right, now my wife was home maternity leave. Well, now she's back at work, so it's not fair to her to be dealing with the kids. So you have to find that balance. Whatever everybody's comfort is, you got to have to find that. So I've had to learn. My daughter was sick yesterday. I took her to the park. I got a call, and I'm like, this isn't important. Be present. Spend time with. You know what I'm saying? Like, can this call wait an hour? Is it an important call? Is it an investment call? If it's an investment call, I'll take it now. But if it's not, it can wait. Because ultimately, if we get to our destination and the people that started with me aren't there with me, then what's the point? I want to show my family that, I told my kids from the jump, like, and they're young, they don't understand. I told my wife, like, hey, look around. This is all going to be worth it. I'm trying to sacrifice now. So in a few years, we don't have to work. I refuse to work until I'm 72. I'm not going to do it. I've seen my parents, not my parents, but my parents do that, right? I've seen my grandparents work a job for 50 plus years and then get a stupid pin and say, thank you for coming. Like, I'm not doing that. Interested. And you invest $100 a month now until you're 66, you get $1 million. I don't want $1 million when I'm 66. I want $1 million now. So that gets up and motivates me. It's like, wow, it would be nice to not have to deal with the competence on a 9 to 5 and let a boss tell you when to take vacation and not to take a vacation, right? So I would say too much is given, much required. So once you take this entrepreneurial jump, now understand that, okay, so now you're not answering to a boss, but now you take an investment, you're answering to a board. You're now answering to your stock. So it's there. You're always going to, again, unless you're just Bill Gates and even the richest people, you have to answer to somebody, right? Right. Whether you're president, he answers to Congress, right? He doesn't. Right. You're going to answer to somebody, right? So if you can accept the fact that depending on which way you're trying to go, I'm not going to necessarily say that it's a bad thing. It's just weigh the cost, right? And I weigh the cost, and for me, it just makes sense now the way the company is going to really kind of jump forward. And like I said, I'm excited. So I pick up. I'm personally a reading machine, so I'm reading books nonstop. pick up truckloads of CEO books. I'm finishing up the CEO of Disney, Bob Iger's book now. Before that, Ryan's book. So it's funny, but if you are a religious person, you would believe that, everything is preordained. Your light is kind of written out ahead. But I can tell you, for me, I knew at a very young age that I was going to be in business. I walked around. My first website, I'm going dating. Do you remember when the internet came out and there was email?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think I was in middle school, 7th grade in North Carolina. And that's when the internet came out and there was email. My first email address was Mr.E_millionaire@hotmail.com. That's
Spoken existence.
Yeah, spoken into it. He's literally, I'd walk around dressed with a briefcase.
Wow.
I knew, people could be like, I'm always like, oh, if you don't know what you want to do, don't necessarily spend the money, go to college. I knew I was going to be international business my freshman year of high school. Wow. I knew I was going to be. I figured I'd be on being in Wall Street and being an investment banker. That was like the dream, but it worked out different ways. But yeah, I always knew I was going to study business. This is what I was, for lack of a better term, ordained to do or called to do. If for those who are religious, those are the terms that they would use. I knew from day one, so I look around and now my parents would tell you, and everybody would say, we never thought you'd be in the alcohol business. Because we didn't. Because we didn't do
a little bit different than a communion cup. It's a little different.
Yeah. I said it's a different type of communion. My parents are pastors. They would say, my mom was like, oh my goodness, it's liquor. But she's like, I know you were called to business. As a kid, you tell numbers, you could, and my co-founders would tell you. So we always make that joke with our company, they handle the bourbon, I handle the business. And that's to say, I knew I could tell you right now, I could tell you every single account that we're in, every single bottle, every single price. That's how my mind is wired. I'm not going to tell you in terms of what we had to do to mix the bourbon to get it in the bottle. That's not my part of the business. And I let my partner Jesse handle the bourbon, right? But when it comes to dollars and cents and the contracts and the language in the contract that we had to get the sale, I know it because I do it. And that's what I'm supposed to do. And I think a lot of times in this entrepreneurial journey, you'll see that sometimes you have to juggle a lot, but you need to know what you're good at. And you need to know where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are. And make sure you know that. You don't know, it's going to be a rude awakening when you start.
Absolutely. Man, you hit so many good points, Emmanuel. Let me back up here. So you mentioned how with your team, each of you have a distinct role. Talk to me and talk to our viewers about the importance or your thoughts on when you're starting a company, staff your weaknesses and collaborate where everybody is kind of working in their area of excellence. And also, how do you all work together? Is it just whenever it's something about business, it's you got the final say, and then when it's ever something about the distilling process, or is it you guys vote? You guys collapse? How does that whole process work in the decision making process?
Yeah, so for us, we do everything by committee. So there's not a decision that gets made without all of us inputting. But again, we're just starting out, so I'm sure things will change as we grow. But everybody has their particular area of expertise. So Jesse handles the bourbon. He handles operations. He does Lean Six Sigma. That is his realm. Brian handles everything IT. So my email address that I'm using right now, the Google Hangouts, all that stuff on the back end, our website, Brian handles all that. I don't even know how to change a picture on a website. He handles that. And then Courtney, working for ESPN for 20 years, he handles all of our marketing and everything like that, getting our press releases, all that stuff. And then there comes me with sales of contracts. So, for example, we had a deal coming up, and we had to talk to a lawyer, and they'll be like, "All right, you got it." My co-founders will know when they has the contract language. I don't need it. You got it. Just like if they were in Kentucky and they were looking at a barrel and they want to taste it, I trust their tongue. You see what I'm saying? So you just and when you're in a business, sometimes you have to trust blindly. You have to trust that other people are going to get it done. So there are things that they know, they don't have to worry. I'm going to handle all the contracts. I'm going to handle the business. I'm going to make sure that when we're talking to investors, I am in the room. And the same with them. I have to trust that Brian is getting the security measures that we need. So when we integrate our website to when we can start selling bottles officially online, that the security measures are there. You see what I'm saying? Or when we do a press release, I'm trusting Courtney that he's going to talk to the production people and they're going to know what to do. You see? So you have to blindly trust. And I don't want everybody to think that it's all, skies and rainbows either. We do have disagreements.
Absolutely.
And what's even more unique about us is the fact that we've been in the room together physically a handful of times, because everything we built has been remote due to COVID,
Wow.
due to
Yeah.
two of us in California, the two in North Carolina. So again, this is us getting on a call, 2 hours every other day to really build this. So you mentioned in terms of knowing the right team and knowing where the staff, I would say for me early on, so it's really important, when you're building a team, that people instill confidence in you. I think that's the most important thing, right? So make sure that they're going to have your back. So when we started, I would be honest, I was very intimidated because I don't know bourbon. I did not know bourbon. Right? So when they're putting the mash bill together, and I just didn't know, because I would go. So now I was like, all right, I'm going on whiskey tours. I go to my local liquor store and just look and taste it. Like I would do all that, but they had been doing distillery tours and they're much older than me. They're not decades, but they're older than me. So they were doing it earlier than me, right? So one day we all, and it was just like, guys, I don't, I was kind of like, man, I'm not. And then Brian was like, you were brought here for a reason. He literally said, get ready because your time is about to come. As soon as we had finished the tasting and we finished the label and then we got bottle, boom, it's my time. Now it's me. I'm talking to talk to distributors. Like it was kind of like hopscotch, right? But at the time I was like, I don't have any to contribute. I'm doing what I can, I'll help with, like set some social media photos. But again, they were like, hey, we know, we're confident that you're in it. And it took a blind, I would say you have to trust blindly, because Jesse and Brian, and even my cousin Courtney to some extent, Courtney knew that I did contracts, but when we hanged out, we don't talk business. We're, what I'm saying?
Right.
And we didn't even, and he's a cousin, but we didn't grow up together. We didn't meet till we moved to California in our later years, right? So,
oh wow,
Courtney's calling them saying, I got a cousin and I know that we need him. Not, you see what I'm saying? Not even knowing.
Yeah.
They had to be like, well, Courtney, if you trust them, then we trust them and we're going to bring them on the team. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, but how confident in your skill? I know I have a good skill set, but be confident in what you have, right? You've been doing this for X amount of years, and I had to learn it's okay to make mistakes, right? It's okay to do it to a certain extent. It's okay to make mistakes. And I wouldn't even call them mistakes, because early on, I would say the first 5 to 7 years, I consider them all learning opportunities. I don't even consider them mistakes. There are no failures. This is what went right, what went wrong, let's go again. That's really it. We remember our first winter, we shipped stuff to California in the middle of winter. What were we thinking? Glass sat on an icy highway that we needed to make a sale. We look back on this stuff and laugh. And the one thing that I would say and would encourage your viewers, there's a verse or a proverb that just says, do not despise small beginnings. Never forget. I can remember, I kid you not, we were waiting on checks. We would cash them in the airport and would go to the bank and hope that they would clear that day because we had to use the money.
Wow.
I remember our first launch party, we only had 12 bottles to spare because we didn't have enough product. Like, remember those days. And we never forget them. We look back and laugh, but it so much. It's like, wow, we look back and look for that growth. Look at the lessons that we learned. And then also how we taken some lessons and then put them to paper to really help us grow, and help people that are coming behind us. Because at the end of the day, if you're not inspiring another generation or people behind you, then what are you really doing? You know what I mean? You just look for yourself, not helping anybody.
Man, absolutely. And what's so interesting about your story, Emmanuel, is not only have you had the success in the professional realm, but also now with the business that you guys are getting started. Our podcast specifically speaks to Black professionals and entrepreneurs, or aspiring Black professionals and entrepreneurs. And so let's kind of take it back to what got you to where you are today to be able to have this successful career and this successful brand. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing. I know you've mentioned your parents a few times, being the son of a preacher man. Tell me a little bit about growing up in North Carolina and, being a military kid and all of that stuff.
Yeah. So much of me is instilled, in my family and my roots. Like my parents are fire breathing Southern Christian pastors, but I'm like the third, I think I'm a fourth generation North Carolinian. So our roots run deep in that state. And so I would say home, I call home. My parents would say, no, we're from North Carolina. You just adopted there. But we grew up there. But I would call home Carolina. That's where all my family, both sides of my family all originated from there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, growing up as a kid, I spent pretty much until high school in Carolina. And that was literally, when I say that, when we went to church, most people we go to church. I'm like, no. We went to church. It was Bible study. There was Sunday school, second service. There was, youth night. We were in church a lot, so still, and I'm grateful, but they were strict, certain stuff, watch it. You weren't going out, we weren't celebrating Halloween, and we weren't going to dances, I think the only thing that we were pretty much allowed to do was play sports, which was why I love sports, it's sports. And I'm one of four, so I got a brother and two sisters. I'm the oldest. So I'd probably say my dad was probably harder on me because I was setting an example for the other three. And so when I had my little high school rebellion, my sisters would always say, once we saw you, we knew not to do it. But they still just, so much wisdom. For me personally, I would say my dad was such a big influence. And then his dad was such a big influence. The power of family is so important. And that's not to say that if you don't have a dad, you can't be. Don't even compare that at all.
Right.
But, instilled in me, and, wanting this blessing. He was a Air Force Lieutenant Colonel. He was an officer. He had set the bar already so high.
Wow.
I remember as a kid walking, so you're young. I didn't realize my dad's rank until we moved overseas and we were living in Japan. We were actually on a military installation. And when he got promoted to Lieutenant Colonel, I was walking in one day and people would stand up when he came in the room. And I was like, it was just, and people were like, oh, you're Waters' son. And so that's when I was like, wow. And then I didn't even know, even some of the foolishness he had to deal with as an officer, which, if you know anything about the military, there are not a lot of African-American military officers. They're few and far between as well. Right. So you learn about that. You learn about some of the stuff. It's funny. We look back now and it's like, man, now I see why dad would be like, when he come home, he's not trying to do no nonsense because he dealt with it all on the job. You have appreciation for it now as a parent, right? Now I'm like, man, he had to commute, deal with nonsense on the job, and then come home and some kids acting up. Yeah, you can shut it down, right? And so now I'm seeing as a parent, if I had to commute all day, deal with foolishness on the job, come home, I want peace in my own house.
Right.
But so much of my upbringing was that they instilled the love of Christ in me, and they grew up in church. And so all these lessons that were taught as I got older, I applied them to my life, So my upbringing is very important, and family is literally everything to me. I'm one of 24 cousins. My dad's the baby. My mom's the second of 5. So I just have a massive family. And so family is everything to me. And that's why during COVID, when we were pretty much isolating and, locking down per se, it really resonated with me in terms of the value of family, because I didn't realize it until that moment. It's like, wow, you really don't. Sometimes you got to take a moment. And so for me, another reason why this entrepreneurial journey is, dear to me is because during COVID, it really showed you corporate America, who they really are in terms of these big companies, right? They really preach, oh, we're family first, but make sure you have your camera on, or make sure you can get to this meeting. You know what I mean? Handle family first, but we still got a business to run. You know what I mean? And so I could put that same energy into something that I want to do.
Absolutely.
So now it's corporate America. We're happy that you guys stayed home and you're safe. Now we want you guys all back in the office and drop your kids off at 8:00 and get back into this office, right? So
yeah,
that always are changing. So yeah, it was a great upbringing. I definitely, if I complain, it'd be just me complaining for no reason. My parents were, taking us to Disney World every year, and my senior year, we moved to Europe, and I got to, that's where I picked my travel bug up from. We were always traveling around. I enjoy seeing other cultures and experiencing that. So it definitely was, so much of who I am today is kind of put in the past. And so I think for me, it's funny, when I left college and went to work for the Department of Defense, I knew how to handle myself with high ranking officers because I had seen my dad. It's so much of what you do, you mimic, right? So that's why when I now as a 35-year-old and when I work at a tech company and I see a senior vice president who's intimidated, I'm like, bro, you can't intimidate me. I've seen it all. You know what I'm saying? I know how to carry myself because they taught me how to do that. They taught me how to be a gentleman. So you say ma'am, you say sir, you respect your elders, body the benefit of doubt. You always give them that respect, you honor them. And so much of that is instilled in me. And even with my company, some of the jockeys and that we're coming out with and the veteran projects that we're working on, we speak to the families first. We're like, hey, this isn't about us being rich. This is about us honoring them. And we need your blessing to do that because honor is everything. You don't have honor or you don't have nothing. And so my parents instilled to me at a young age, integrity is something that you do behind the scenes. That's who you really are. You know what I mean? I live my life like that on a daily basis. Is what are people saying? People can see me out and about, but what are you doing behind closed doors?
Absolutely. Let's talk about, because you really shared with us the experience you've had growing up, but I'm interested to know what, if any, experiences have you had that would be unique to an African-American male? What experiences did you have to deal with in your journey in corporate America, in your journey as an entrepreneur that is unique to people like you and I? And what lessons or information could we potentially pull from that to help some of our listeners?
Yeah. What's interesting to me, or I should say, and I don't even know it's unique to me because I now, as I get older, I learn, but what was interesting for me is growing up as a kid, Carolina, because my parents lived in affluent neighborhood. I pretty much was told I was the white boy and I wasn't black enough. It was pretty, right? You weren't black enough. You talk white. And so I got that pretty much all my life.
Wow.
I got so that even when I moved out here to the Bay Area, and one of the guys, he's a good friend now, but he's from South Central LA. He was like, dude, I didn't think you was black when you were doing your interview, right? And so for me, it's very interesting, right? So as I was younger, I was upset. I was angry about it, right? I get mad about it, like, oh, how could I not be black enough? And, just because I talk like this or I don't have an accent or whatever the case may be. As I got older, I realized that everybody's journey is going to be different. You can't relate to somebody growing up in South Central and Compton because I didn't grow up in South Central and Compton, right?
Right.
So say, that I was quote unquote, I grew up privileged. Sure. That you can say that. I didn't grow up in inner city, but I would say this: in the day, no matter where you grew up, the color of my skin does not change.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we're all I like to believe that we're all in this together. I know that we've all had unique experiences, but we're not. I think blacks, in particular, for whatever reason, they think we're all monolithic. We're not.
Yes.
All have very unique experiences. So my experience may be different than even how you grew up, right? But in the day, can we find, again, common ground, and can I respect where you're coming from? What experiences have led you to think the way that you do in your past, and what experiences have I encountered to let me think the way I do, right? So for me, I'm a Southerner at heart, and some people tell you I'm not even Southerner enough, right? But I totally different growing up as an African American in North Carolina versus somebody that my buddy who grew up here in South Central Los Angeles. You have two complete realities. He grew up during race riots and things like that. He saw it live, and always, growing up in the South, to me, I'm always like, y'all haven't seen racism like I've seen it, and he was like, trust me. LAPD are racist. And so for me, it was eye-opening. And so I had to learn, even particularly when I lived here in San Jose, which doesn't have a huge African-American population. Now they're more in like Oakland and San Francisco, but the blacks that I do know, I had to learn to not even judge their experiences because you don't know how they grew up, and it's not, I put in this box, like my guy I was like, what do you mean you don't know about Juneteenth? Like I was shook. Like, you don't know about Juneteenth? And it was like, well, years back, you didn't even know about Tulsa race riots. Like that was something not in the school books that were taught. So again, not necessarily unique to me, but just everybody's on a different journey. Everybody's had different some experiences. So never judge a book by its cover. Always give somebody the benefit of the doubt and learn them. So that I learned that early on, I think it makes me a better man to appreciate where everybody has coming from. And I always want to hear somebody, what's their story and why they think the way they do. So for me, I wouldn't say there's nothing unique about my experiences. Have I had racism? Sure. Have I been? I can remember, I think 6 years ago when I started my tech company, my good friend Carol, who is a Black woman, she took me in as like her son. The first day of my company, she literally said, "You must be new here." I look around, she's like, "There's only 4 of us here. I know you're new. I never seen you before." Right? Well, you kind of get these, when you're in this place that's predominantly not where you're from, you get those things. I've got microaggressions like, "Oh, you're very well spoken," or "You're very," like, I get those microaggressions, right? It used to bother me. I'd set it off, don't you ever call me out by I used to young, now, look, man, I'm not even giving that the time of day. You're not going to put something on me to interrupt my energy and my mood today. I'm here to do a job, and that's it. And that's even more reason why my company means so much to me, because in addition to it being ours, it was also a safe space as a Black male where I can go, right? I knew during COVID as a young father, it was a lot of long days adjusting to a new child in the house. And I know that Jesse has kids and Courtney has grandkids. They could tell me, this is what you got to do. This is how you navigate. This is, you see what I'm saying? Or even there was some days we on the call, we wouldn't even talk bourbon. How are y'all brothers doing? There's a lot going on in the world as it pertains to males.
Yeah.
What's going on? Are y'all good? And so I learned, and so much. You mentioned like, as my journey will been like for me, I've learned now as I'm like not 36. Mental health is so important. I never knew it until now. Like that, that is make sure you're spiritual, you're emotional, you're physical, but your mental health and all that contributes to mental health. There are some days where you're not okay, and it's okay. I think as particularly Black men, especially if you grew up in households with, dominant Black. My dad is an alpha male. His dad is an alpha male. I'm an alpha male. That's why I left home. It's like, Pops, we love each other, but both of us alpha.
Yeah.
We need to go ahead and go our own way, right? But when you grow up, it's okay to not be okay sometimes. And I had to learn in my journey that you don't have it all together. And that's okay. Some days you can fall apart, and it's okay. What's going on? You don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders at all times. And I think that sometimes we, as Blacks specifically, tend to do that, right? We always say we go into a job and we represent like a whole race. It's like, wow, where do we get that from?
Yeah.
Where do we get that mentality from, right? And I get it. Sometimes there's only a few of us on the job, but I had to learn as I got older is to make sure that you're taking care of your mental psyche first. Because if you don't have that, you have nothing. So the power of a sound mind is everything.
That is amazing, man. We are wrapping up, Emmanuel. I just first of all want to say thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. You mentioned so many cool things. I want to say thank you for being on the program so people can see and actually experience. You made a good point that all of us don't have the same story. We may have different backgrounds. We may speak differently. That doesn't make us any less Black, any less African American. And thank you for coming on today and sharing your story. Emmanuel, where can people find you? Got your brand? What's you guys' social medias, and everything that you said we'll link in the description as well.
Yeah, thank you, man. And thank you for having me. This is an amazing opportunity. I love what you're doing with this. I watched a couple episodes and I'm inspired, and I never want to stop learning. So thank you for having me. You can find us hashtag Old Hillside Bourbon Co. on Instagram, Facebook, and then oldhillsidebourboncompany.com, which is our website, which you can order bottles through. So feel free to follow those and drop us a line. And again, we're here to support. We have some big projects coming out soon. So I'm looking forward to the next few months. It's got to be a really, really, really good next few months for us.
That is awesome. I mean, it's exciting to see what you guys are doing, Emmanuel. You've inspired me, man. I'm excited. I'm ready to go right now. But hey, I appreciate you taking the time to share with me today, brother. And yeah, keep doing what you guys are doing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I know for sure that we will be talking soon.
Most definitely. Most definitely. I'll be ordering me a bottle here probably by the end of the day. I'll be placing her.
Sip it slow. Sip it slow.
Sip it slow. Sip it slow. All right. Thanks a lot, Emmanuel. Appreciate it, brother.